Hello, I'm Gemma and this is Nonfic Books and I'm here for my January wrap-up. The first book I read this month, let's see if it'll show up, is Simplicity Parenting by Kim John Payne and Lisa M. Ross. I've read quite a few ebooks this time and I'm not going to hold them up because the lighting does make it all go a little bit bonkers. But Simplicity Parenting is, if you are a parent, you've probably heard of this book. It's quite a popular book, and as the title suggests, it's all about bringing simplicity back into parenting and not trying to overcomplicate the whole thing, overcram kids' schedules, and just trying to allow them the opportunity to be kids, to play, and the importance of playing and unstructured time. I don't know, maybe if you're a helicopter parent this book would have opened your eyes or given you a slightly different viewpoint, but this already ties in with stuff that I believe quite strongly in, so I can't say I learnt anything particularly new. It's always nice to have one's opinions on parenting validated by stuff you read, but it isn't something that I think is particularly sort of groundbreaking or totally new. I read two parenting books this month, and the other one is really quite different, and that is French Children Don't Throw Food, Parenting Sequence from Paris by Pamela Druckerman. I don't know how I came across this book, but I thought it sounded interesting after I'd read the sample, and so I read the whole book. And the whole premise is that French kids are brought up in a slightly different way to British and in particular American kids, because Pamela Druckerman is an American married to a British man living in Paris, and they now have 3 kids there. Or certainly when she wrote the book she had 1 daughter and 2 boys, twins. And it was about the differences she saw in the Anglo expats living there and raising their kids and the French natives and how they raised their kids. I thought it was very interesting. It certainly did give me a few ideas, the importance of things like, say, making sure that kids always say hello and goodbye, and the respect that that teaches them, and the sort of responsibility it puts on them to be a full person who is actually part of the experience was very interesting. But again, I don't think there was anything totally groundbreaking, but it was a fun, interesting, very quick read that I did enjoy, even though I'm not sure I like this whole trend for women authors to present themselves in a slightly useless way, being very neurotic, a bit useless, always apologising for themselves. I don't find male authors doing that very much, and it really annoys me when women authors do, so I definitely, while I enjoyed the book and I think I've given it to my husband to read because I think it would be good if both of us were on the same page when it came to our parenting style, I think that he will certainly be annoyed by that, and I think a lot of people might be annoyed by that. It's also known as Bringing Up Bebe, I think in America, but in the UK it's known as French Children Don't Throw Food. I will just do my final one on the iPad so I can put that down and stop looking down here, because I have very little to say about this. It's called French Women Don't Sleep Alone. Who's the author by? By Jamie Callan. I thought it was dreadful. It was all about how basically women should all sort of primp themselves, wear stockings all the time and flirt with everything that moves, and that's exactly how French women do it. It was just so full of stereotypes, and you could read the content of that book in a single page article, I think, so I really wouldn't recommend that. Then I have 2 physical books, if I can just pick them up. The first one I will only touch on very, very briefly because it is Lucy Inglis's Georgian London, which is the Nonfic History Club pick for January. So I was a little bit disappointed for Thor Thoughts. I will link my full review video on it down below. And the final book that I read that I really enjoyed was Mary Berry's Mary's Household Tips and Tricks, Your Guide to Happiness in the Home. This is a really beautiful book. And it's full of household tips. She goes through different areas of the house, from the kitchen, which obviously you would expect with this being Mary Berry. If you don't know her, she is a cook and baker who was on the Great British Bake Off and is pretty much a little bit of a sort of legend really when it comes to everything cooking and household related. and it's beautiful. She looks at, I'll just read it. There's kitchen know-how, cleaning and configuring your home, laundry and wardrobe wisdom, gardening and flowers, hosting and adding the extra touches. I think this book is really great, but I think it will be for a couple of different people. I think this would be a fantastic present for someone moving in on their own, maybe a new couple who are getting married if they haven't lived together very much, or when someone's buying their first house, because there's lots of tips on useful things for cleaning, different routines you can get into which are particularly helpful. If you are a long-term housewife who is incredibly skilled and has their systems in place, you're not going to get anything out of this book. You might enjoy it because I think Mary Berry is charming, and it's a very, very beautiful book. The illustrations and photographs in here are really nice. But if you've already got your systems down, you really won't learn anything. If, like me, you're a relatively rubbish housewife who can do certain things but isn't the best at getting in a routine and sticking to it, this is really helpful. I will definitely be referring back to stuff, some of the cleaning stuff and also some of the routines, how often she suggests doing certain things will definitely be something I will refer back to. So I thought this was a really lovely book. My husband looked at me like I was mad when I got it. He's like, what are you reading that sort of thing for? But I thought it was really enjoyable, and it is, as I say, very, very beautiful. And her tips can definitely be sort of scaled up and scaled down, so even if you were living in a bedsit, a lot of her tips would still be very valuable, and you could be living in the sort of very large family home that she does and still get a lot out of this book. So yes, that was probably my highlight of the books for the month, because it was such a pleasant, nice read. What did you think? Have you read any of these books? Leave a comment down below. What have you read this month? I'd really like to know, because my January was okay reading wise, but it certainly didn't sort of break the trend of last year's fairly meh reading. I'm really excited for some of the books coming up in February that I have on my TBR, so hopefully February will be the month that turns things around and it reintroduces a few more really awesome books into my life once again. So if you've read anything great, add them down below so I can keep an eye on those, and let me know. Has it been a good reading month for you? Hopefully see you in a video soon. Bye!